Hello, dear friends, and welcome to my podcast dedicated to sight reading through the lens of the historically informed performance practice. My name is Darina Ablogina. Today, we are taking you on a very special journey to Malta, the jewel of the Mediterranean, where history and music come together in the Valletta Baroque Festival. In this episode, we'll sit down with the artistic director of the festival, Kenneth Zammit Tabona, to explore the vision and creativity behind this extraordinary event. So whether you are a history enthusiast, a Baroque music lover, or simply curious about this remarkable place, you are in for a real treat.
I'm Kenneth Zammit Tabona. I'm the artistic director of the Baroque Festival, the Valletta Baroque Festival, and opera as from next year. This year it's going to be the Valletta Baroque, the 13th edition. And next year, the 14th edition, we are going to introduce opera into the festival. And therefore, it will be renamed sort of thing as the Valletta Baroque and Opera Festival.
Fantastic, congratulations, exciting news. Can you take us back to the beginning of the Valletta Baroque Festival? What sparked the idea and what was your original vision for it?
Well, the original vision, let's get that over and done with. The original vision basically was, again, very, in a way, uninformed because, of course, one learns as one goes along. I mean, what I was 15 years ago when this was conceived, it's a different Kenneth to today's Kenneth, sort of where I have had so much experience and I'm learning all the time and I'm listening all the time and, learning new things. So one lives and learns. If one doesn't learn as you go along, you die, in my opinion. But anyway, I think you become old when you stop learning. Basically, the Baroque Festival was something that was always germinating in my head. When I was still very young, in my teens, in fact, I was a volunteer. I used to help the curator of the Cathedral Museum in Mdina, where there are the cathedral archives. And there was Father John Azzopardi, who was microfilming the music of the cathedral. And I said, Don Juan, what are those? And he told me, so this is the music of our boss Azzopardi, and he started mentioning Maltese composers and telling me about them and how, the grand masters and the knights who were resident in Malta used to send promising musicians and composers to Naples to study with Durante and Pergolesi. So there was always this one. And I said, wow, so are they ever played? And he said, no, unfortunately. Then I remember there was a Maltese conductor, composer, musicologist called Joseph Vella, a great friend of mine who unfortunately died. And however, a great friend of mine. And he started editing them for not modern performance. They were edited, but there were no historic instruments in Malta. We had no harpsichord, we had no theorbo, we had no the strings were modern with metal strings, 440, not 415. So nobody even had heard of temperaments and things like that. Anyway, so I was determined to get this done, and I said, we have to join mainstream Europe. We have the places, the Baroque places. Valletta is a Baroque city. And basically we have, the musicians, and we can get the musicians from abroad, and we can create a festival. The festival started, very modestly in Valletta with about maybe 12, 15 concerts spread over 2 weeks. And towards the middle of the first week, people started coming from overseas for it. I couldn't believe it. One, the weather was beautiful, and everywhere, everyone in Europe was freezing. So let's go to Malta and save on electricity bills. Today, 13, 14 years later, it's a different situation. There's so much tourism. One almost wants to say, stop, because it's overdone. But again, the people who come for the Baroque Festival are of a certain educational background, totally different to what I call Plus, again, there are quite a lot of people who come to Malta, not knowing, in January, and find the festival here. And, they say, oh, they're staying in, they said, let's go. So that's basically, it works very well. So the fact that it's in January, it works very well. So basically that is the concept of it.
Was there a particular moment or experience that inspired your journey toward becoming the artistic director of the festival?
There is something else. So about 2010, which sort of really sparked me off. There's a summer festival, and in July, and Malta is very hot in July, and they got UBO, European Union Baroque Orchestra, which unfortunately doesn't exist anymore. It exists in a different format. It was the first time we actually had a harpsichord brought over and a theorbo, etc. People had never seen it. Most people had never seen it. And of course, it was out of the question in the damp heat to tune Baroque instruments to keep them at a level. They would have gone insane, now that I know, sort of thing. And they requested somewhere air-conditioned, and they ended up at the Prime Minister's office. There's a big hall in the Prime Minister's office, and they had the one. So my brain said, logically, I said, if they can't play in summer because of the heat, they can play in winter. And as a matter of fact, UBO was included till it actually folded up. UBO was included every year. I had Lars Ulrik Mortensen, sort of conducting. I had a UBO concert in every edition. So basically that was the one, that's the spark really, that really ignited. It was always at the back of my head. So there was always a reason. There were so many reasons why we should, being Baroque, having the archives, etc. But this was the one that really sparked me off.
Over the years, there must have been some magical performances or standout moments. Could you share a few that have left a lasting impression on you?
Philip Herrewege conducting the Bach cantatas, Bachs and Buxtehude. Beautiful, just total magic. But we have had lots of very beautiful concerts. I mean, we had one yesterday with Thomas Dunford and their team, Langlois de Swart. They play in such a magical way. I've had John Rondeau and Thomas Dunford before. The way Baroque is played today is completely different. You see, Baroque today is played in a very emotional way. They have managed to sort out this mental block which probably existed before, where they used to call Bach the sublime sewing machine, because everything was so exact, etc., and it used to be played that way without any emotion. And suddenly, we start hearing. It started with Glenn Gould, and then it goes on, and suddenly you get the Goldberg variations played in a completely magical way. So again, Baroque music is very beautiful music in the sense of how it can be played. All the beautiful ornamentation on harpsichord, on theorbo, the continuo, the way they're written. The magic of the sound, the beauty of the orchestration, even basically on the grace notes, and especially the grace notes of singers that are specially written for them even today. I remember I had a very amusing concert with Simone Kermes and Vivica Genot, where they ended up by singing ABBA. So the ABBA in a Baroque manner, which was quite extraordinary. So again, so I love transcriptions. For instance, we've had transcriptions of the Goldbergs. I mean, I'm a bit obsessed by the Goldbergs. So I have the Goldbergs played any old how, sort of thing, whether it's on harp and whether it's on accordion, stuff. So grand organ in a quartet. We had them done in an octet, a wind octet and harp, specially composed by a young man who plays in the orchestra. It was specially imagine he orchestrated it all himself for wind instruments. He's a oboe player. Today I have more local participation in the festival. Tomorrow, for instance, we have Samuel Kutayar playing solo violin. So it's very much been the year of the violin. Yesterday with Timothée. And then on Tuesday we have Charlie Siem and Carmine Lauri. Carmine Lauri is Maltese, and he's the leader of the London Philharmonic. And I remember when we bought him his first violin, he was about 12. And we bought him the first violin. I was at the bank at the time, and I had this crowdfunding thing done. And we bought him a very exclusive violin, which of course he had to hold with handcuffs. And Charlie Siem is Norwegian and English, and he also is a sort of a virtuoso player, and he comes regularly to Malta.
How do you approach curating the festival lineup? What goes into balancing well-loved classics with lesser-known gems, and how do you ensure a vibrant mix of artists and ensembles?
Let's start from the end. The vibrant mix for me is very important on many levels. That there should be in the festival, there should be something for everybody. So we had jazz this morning, for instance. We'll have rock baroque at the end of the festival. Bass guitars and drums and and the works. And so basically there should lots of what I call transcriptions, which I enjoy. So I can have on modern ensembles playing. But then, of course, yes, it has to be balanced out with, the real, what I call the real thing. So like tonight, even though there were the improvisations and things between, and the inventions in between, which were, especially those lovely harpsichord runs, which are really magical. However, yes, today I am, because of the festival's reputation, things come to me more than I go to them. However, there's still very much an element of putting something together and making it work. My big challenge, for instance, next year is how to incorporate opera within the structure of the festival. It's not going to be easy, because what we are going to do is we are going to premiere an opera which probably has not been performed since 1747. Which is Geronimo Arbos's Pelopida. Geronimo Arbos was an Italo-Maltese composer, born in Malta, to a Maltese mother, Italian father. And he studied with Durante along with Pergolesi. In fact, it's very curious, his Stabat Mater, there's a little passage right at the beginning of the Stabat Mater, which is literally lifted out of Pergolesi's. Just a little passage. It's as if he's saying, probably Pergolesi had died by that time, because he was very young when he died. He's saying, Mr. Pergolesi, I salute you. I take my hat off to you. This is because I want you to be remembered. Thinking, and basically now I'm going my own way. I'm doing my own thing. It's a lovely. But I always think it's sort of like an emotional tribute from Arbos to Pergolesi.
Do you know anything about the music landscape, let's say, from the old times of Malta, like 16th century, 17th century? Could you tell what people did
yes. One has to remember that Malta in those days, from 1530 onwards, we had the order of, or what is known as the Order of Malta. Now, for people who don't know what the Order of Malta is, they started as hospitallers in the Crusades. And then they had to, obviously, because they had to defend the holy places, they turned into knights as well. And then, of course, they merged with the Templars when there was this is a brief history. But they ended up in Malta in 1530, because in 1526, they were in Rhodes, in the island of Rhodes. And what happened was that Suleiman the Magnificent decided to chase them out, and basically they looked everywhere. They went around the courts of Europe looking for a place to go. And they didn't want to make the same mistake as the Templars, and go in the middle of Paris and have the king and the Pope conspiring to take their property. So they wanted a place of their own, and nobody would give it to them, till in the end Charles V, who was emperor of everywhere, as King of Sicily in his own right, gave them Malta and Tripoli. Tripoli they lost immediately. Malta, of course, they kept, but they didn't like it. Malta was a barren rock. It was nothing like Rhodes, where there were forests and greenery, and it was beautiful and very lush. But that very physiognomy of Malta is what saved Malta 35 years later, in 1565, when the Turks came, you see, and they had to withdraw because they had nothing to eat. So that's what really saved Malta. Anyway, so the knights, or rather the Grand Master, who was very forceful, was French, Jean Parisot Valette, or de Valette, but anyway, there are two schools of thought, decided to stay here. Malta was in ruins, total ruins, and he built Valletta, which bears his name. You see, once he started building Valletta and everything else, knights from all over Europe started to come here and settle in Malta, and have, in those days, a Correa de Sousa, for instance, sent his architects, etc., to build him a house in Valletta, to create a house. And then he sent his servants over, and he had his tailor and his wig maker and his this and his that and that. And then came to live in Malta. There was an uncle and a nephew, and they both inherited the house, and then it went back to the order. So this is how it worked. The Order of Malta was all aristocratic. If you look at the pavement of St. John's Cathedral, it's like an almanac de Gotha. Practically all the not even royal, yes, houses, Catholic ones of Europe are there. Orleans and Visconti and Grimaldi, Medici, there's a Medici. So basically, yes. I'm very proud that next to just two combs away from the Medici, there's a collateral ancestor of mine, who is described as Melitensium Ingeniorum Phoenix, which means a phoenix of Maltese intelligence. His name was Salvatore Imbrol, and he is credited to have invented what's called the specula melitensis, which measures latitude, very important for navigation. So that is why he's a phoenix of Maltese intelligence. But it's very good that they acknowledge even the order, even though he was a member of the order, he had to be born in Sicily to join the order. Acknowledge him and put him in buried him in St. John's. There are very few Maltese, really. Anyway, to go back to it, Valletta was a little microcosm of Europe. That is why Maltese composers, Maltese musicians went to Naples to study, especially in the 18th century. So in the archives we have madrigals, we have lots of madrigals by, I think they're called two brothers, I think, Domenico Balzano. Those were Maltese. Malta was given in as a fief to the order, and it was only till in the beginning of the 18th century that I think it was Grand Master Pereios, he closed his crown on his coat of arms, which means he went to royal status. So what do you call it? Today the Grand Master is a prince, and is addressed, but not addressed as an eminence, because he's got the status of a cardinal. So there's this very strange relationship between the Vatican. The Vatican tries to take over. It almost did. I don't know what's happening at the moment. So yes, it's a very interesting situation. So all these people wanted music. You see, so if Grandmaster Pinto was going to entertain the Prince of Sayn-Wittgenstein, for instance, and he came to more, he'd say, "Mr. Rabos, can you produce some, incidental music like all the sovereigns and all the aristocracy of Europe? They were just the same." So, of course, unfortunately, what did survive are the music in the church archives. There is secular music, but there's a lot of religious music for obvious reasons. Unfortunately, what I call the National Archives they found that versus the vellum and stuff, which was very good. They used to cover books with it. As a matter of fact, they found a sonata, which was covering another book. We used as wrapping paper, sort of thing.
Beyond the stage, does the festival engage with the community through education or outreach? Can you share a story or example of how these initiatives have made an impact?
In outreach, basically, we target children. We have the Petite Écurie doing a special program this coming week for children. So basically, every year we have a program which is specially targeted for children.
How have you managed to captivate and grow your audience over the years?
I think the magic of Valletta, the magic of Baroque Malta, which transcends to even the villages, because we started off by being just Valletta. And then in 2018, ironically, when Valletta was the capital of culture, in January we had to sort of, in a way, move out because of the festivities of the opening of. So I said, we'll have to move out. So we went to Mdina, we went to Palazzo Parisio, we went to different places, and it worked. So we kept it up. So basically it's Malta-wide, you see. We find, Baroque gems, of which there are many. So basically we have a sort of medium-sized church, like for instance my little old parish church where I live in St. Julian's, which is just across the road from me. The street. Tomorrow we're having Samuel Kotayar playing in it, and it's a lovely 16th century church, barrel vaulted, which is very sweet and beautifully kept. We find a lot of these. There are a lot of these. So yes, I think the fact that even sometimes the Maltese themselves have not been to certain places like Verdala Castle, for instance, or the President's Palace, the music room of the President's Palace. You see, where we have solo piano recitals. So there's that. There's the beauty of the venues, and then of course there's also the level of the musicians. You see, I mean, we're talking about, Jean Rondeau, Philippe Herrewega, we're talking about, and Jordi Savall, they've all been. We have William Christie next week, celebrating his 80th birthday. So these are all what I call the grand people of the Baroque world, sort of thing. But again, so people come to Malta, where else at the moment, if you walk down the street over here, everybody's sitting out in the street having supper on tables. Where on earth can you do that? Really and truly, it's quite unique. I mean, we are further south than Tunisia, so when we are like a little microcosm of Europe.
I think so too. What have been some of the biggest challenges in bringing this festival to life? And on the flip side, what moments have filled you with the greatest pride as its artistic director?
I think basically staging the Messiah in the middle of COVID. So that was really something. Also, we had the Dido and a special performance of Dido and Aeneas in the middle of COVID. So specially staged. That they weren't near each other. They all kept within the prescribed distance. That I think was a real challenge. COVID was a real challenge, which I hope I would never have to live through again. I think most people have blanked it out of their mind. Those 2 years were, sort of wiped off. But I still remember the challenges. I still remember looking at the platea of the theatre and seeing all these sort of like black drapes where people could not sit because they would not be near each other, and asking whether they're from the same household. If they do, so I could not sit near my godson, for instance, because he doesn't live in the same house. So he had to sit, a meter away, and so from 200 people in the platea, we were reduced to something like 60. Those were challenges, and I think I'm not the only one. So yes, the ones which filled me with pride, The ones which filled me with pride, yes. I mean, the as I said, you know, those cantatas were simply wonderful. Also, when we did the two Passions, the St. Matthew, St. John, and the B minor Mass, you know, the big, you know, really big, beautiful Mass, which of course I need to repeat now because it's been some time. You know, but I never thought in my lifetime that in St. John's Co-Cathedral, which is just a, you know, a unique experience, just being there, I would ever hear something like the St. Matthew Passion. I never thought it would actually materialize in my life. And I remember for those 3 hours, I was so emotional. By the time, you know, they said, Mache dich mein Herzen rein, I was in tears, I was floods. But even now, I feel very emotional about it. I, you know, want to cry, because I never thought that in my life that I would ever hear this played, performed so wonderfully by the, you know, it was wonderful. It was the age orchestra of the Age of Enlightenment. You know, it was beautiful. I'm like, my emotions are like overboiled macaroni. Yes, I'm completely, you know, sort of completely devastated. I just can't talk. You know, it's something very wonderful. But again, and I said, my God, it was me. I did it. You know, sort of, I brought this to Malta. You know, it's sort of, you know, I always wanted to hear it. I always wished it, and I got it. And to me, you know, yes, it does fill me with lot of, not pride, I think a lot of happiness. You know, the Baroque Festival has made me very happy. The last 13 years, I mean, I'm getting on in life, I'll soon be 70. So, you know, but again, I find these things keep me young. I may walk with a stick, but I've got the mentality of a 20-year-old. You know what I mean? So they're very patient with me sometimes. You know, so
I think it's a very positive note to end our episode with. Thank you very much, Kenneth. Thank you very much for listening. And if you would like to contact me, please find my email address in the description box. I wish you all the best and see you soon. Bye.